Hey, everybody, welcome to another edition of Huddle Up with Howard. He's Howard Richards. I'm Mike Claiborne, and we welcome everybody for being part of what we do, courtesy of our good friends from Amarin, Illinois, and of course, Munganess, St. Louis Acura. Just to mention a few, we'll talk about a few other sponsors here in just a bit. But Howard, life is good in Como these days, man. You're off to a bowl. You're bowl eligible now. You really play well on the road. At least Missouri did play well on the road, and I thought that was a good sign, considering how much Kentucky had given Missouri problems in the past.
Yeah, that was Missouri's first win in Lexington, Kentucky since 2013. Hard to believe that it has been that long since you've gotten a road victory there. Not to say that games haven't been controversial. And the most controversial games that Mizzou has played in the SEC have seemingly all been against the Wildcats. So it was a good win for this team, with something to prove. Back-to-back road wins. I don't know that that's happened in Drink's tenure in 4 years. So that's a big thing. Beating its second-ranked team in the same season, that's a big thing also. And here's the thing. I still don't think Missouri has played its best football yet. I say that because, again, although there were fewer penalties against Kentucky, it started off slow, spotted the Wildcats 14 points. So they had to scratch and claw from behind, which is not unusual for this team. They've done this. They've been able to come back. So that's a positive. But what I'd love to see, better tackling, fewer chunk plays given up on defense, more sustained drives on offense, fewer penalties, and better certainly in the area of third downs. If this team can put together one solid game, sky's the limit as to how well they would be viewed as a complete team. But here's the thing: you get a feel for that, and then it becomes like muscle memory. Now you've got to sustain that. They haven't achieved it yet. So in a lot of ways, being 6-1, they're lucky to be there. But it's sometimes teams take a lot longer to reach those types of goals. And maybe this is an opportunity for them to continue to improve in those areas.
And, the other thing, they've been fortunate not to have anybody hurt for an extended period of time. I mean, the way the game is played now, injuries come into play so much that you lose a key guy and all of a sudden you're trying to figure out, is the guy behind him ready? Did he get enough reps in practice? And, practice isn't what it used to be. I mean, most of the reps are dedicated to the ones. And the twos are they're on the field and they get a few snaps. But the Missouri has been very fortunate to have that working for them, where they've had guys that have been able to step up and stay healthy.
Yeah, I'd say the only noteworthy injury that they've had has been Chad Bailey at linebacker. He missed the first probably 3 games. He's going to be out again against South Carolina. They just want to get him healthy. Ennis Rakestraw missed a game because of a slight groin injury. He's back against South Carolina. Darius Robinson, their star defensive end, has missed a game, but he returned against Kentucky and played a big role. He had 2 big sacks against the Wildcats. So luckily the depth has held up for them defensively, and that's so important that you've got guys that are capable of playing up to the level of the starters.
Now, you have a bye week after this week, correct?
Correct.
So how do you keep people focused and making sure that they don't look ahead? Because, bye weeks, it's kind of like that trap weekend. Hey, we want to play hard. We want to finish strong. But it only takes 1 or 2 guys to start thinking about next week when we're off and where we're going to head and what are we going to do. So how do you make sure everybody stays focused against a team in South Carolina that can score a little bit? And they can't stop many people, but they can make it an interesting Saturday if you let them.
Well, I think with, the first game following the bye is the Georgia Bulldogs. So if you're looking ahead, you're looking ahead for the right reasons, if you will. You have a formidable opponent. I don't know that you give them too much time off because you still want to stay sharp. You still want to continue with the timing. Mizzou, in my opinion, hasn't played well after bye weeks. I'm not a fan of them. I mean, in theory, it's great you get guys back from injury, get them rested up, get your mind off football for a few days and come back refreshed. But being able to stay sharp being able to continue to block out distractions, being able to build upon what you've built thus far, assuming they can beat South Carolina and end up 7-1, it's a tall task. But I would say this: if you beat South Carolina at homecoming, it will be nice to go into a bye week at 7-1, knowing that you face the Georgia Bulldogs, a team that it's going to take everything you have to beat them, especially in their own backyard.
Let's take a break. He's Howard Richards. I'm Mike Claiborne. It's Huddle Up with Howard on Claibs Online.
There's always been a bright side to living in downstate Illinois. Ameren, Illinois is making it even brighter with a little help from the sun. Right now, we're building a next-generation solar facility to bring you cleaner energy for generations to come. It's good for the environment, your neighborhood, and everyone living in downstate Illinois. That's brighter thinking. That's energy at work. Learn how you can participate in solar programs at amerenillinois.com/renewables.
Munganast St. Louis Acura has a great selection of new and certified pre-owned Acuras. Get 3.9% financing for up to 36 months on all new Acura models, or get $1,000 in loyalty incentives on the 2023 TLX and RDX, and $750 in loyalty incentives on the 2024 Integra. Get financing as low as 1.99% for up to 36 months on certified pre-owned TLX and MDX models. Munganast St. Louis Acura, better than ever for you.
Welcome back, everybody. We continue with Huddle Up with Howard. We're talking about the college football scene. One thing I wanted to bring up with you is apparently Michigan might be in a little trouble. They've been accused of stealing signs where they send people to other games to try and see what the sideline activity looks like. Michigan is flat out denied it. What are you talking about? I don't know anything about that.
Like they would admit it in the first
exactly.
place.
I mean, but when you think about Harbaugh and the recruiting issue and some other things that have gone on, you wonder. I mean, and I don't think this is unusual. I think this has gone on well before now, because I think it's easier to do now than ever before because there's so many people paying attention to what the sideline is like. It doesn't take a genius to start stealing signs. Now, what you do about it and how you fix it, that's a whole different story.
I think, if a team is concerned about that, and I'll tell you what Mizzou did a few years ago, you've got to change up what you do, whatever your indicators are for your plays, much like they do in baseball. You may have all this stuff and hats and ears and all that, and the crucifixion. One of those is your indicator, and whatever the first or second sign after that is what you do. Now, football teams use different flash cards or different placards to indicate something. So I'm not sure how easy or how difficult it is to steal signs. A few years back, Missouri, for years, the Missouri Tigers football team was on the east side of Faurot Field. And as you know, the camera shoots towards the east side. Barry Odom was head coach. I think he was convinced that someone else was stealing signs from television. So what did he do? He switched the sidelines. So the Missouri now sits on the west side. So whenever the camera shoots, all you can see is players
the back of everybody's head.
You can't see the signs that are going across the field. So if that's the case, there's no way in the world you could ever eliminate it, because how do you know who's in your stands? I mean, there could be a representative from any team that's there to sort of, pick up on something. But even if you think that's the case, you just have to be smart enough to me to change things up every week so that you aren't tipping off anyone. You're not giving anyone that advantage if that is the case.
Hey, for you've been around for a while. Did you ever play for a paranoid coach that always thought somebody was cheating?
So I'll tell you this. When I first went to the Cowboys, before they built Valley Ranch, which is now functionally obsolete.
Yeah.
And now they're at the Star.
At the Star, yeah.
We practiced, and no one would ever believe this until you saw it. We practiced at this one-level corrugated tin shack. Literally is a shack, one practice field. The weights were outside. When I walked in there, I thought, there is no way that this is a professional team. This has got to be a joke. But that's where we were. So behind the practice field, I guess it's probably on the north end of the practice field, there was a 2 or 3 level Days Inn hotel. And going back to the 70s when George Allen was coaching the Redskins, legend has it that someone busted someone from the Redskins in that hotel watching practice. So from that point on, Cowboys went and bought out all the hotel rooms during the week when we would practice.
Well, I remember Mike Martz had them plant trees at Rams Park because they thought somebody might have been watching practice. Again, you can watch practice, but if you don't know what you're watching, I don't know if it helps. I mean, and then you have to figure out how to defend it or how to attack it. It's amusing. And I think every sport has guys. I know it in baseball. There's always a guy thinking somebody's cheating. And I've seen it in basketball as well, where they kind of know what the inbound plays are going to be. It's a fun element, but you still have to go out and do something about it even if you do know somebody's cheating.
Yeah, exactly. So it still comes down to even if you think you know what a team is going to run, it still comes down to execution. If your guys block it better than the defense can scheme against it, then that offense is going to win, regardless.
Hey, we're getting closer to the bowl championship rankings, and obviously everybody else has a ranking. Do we really know what we have here? Is Michigan that good? Is Ohio State that good where they get ranked? Because when you look at the schedule, you're saying to yourself, well, wait a minute, who are you playing? I mean, now Ohio State can claim Notre Dame, and Notre Dame beat USC. I get that. But when I look at some of these schedules of these highly ranked teams, I'm trying to figure out how do you get that ranked that high when you really haven't had a very difficult schedule. Now, you're in the SEC, your conference schedule is going to thin out the herd. I don't know if that's the case in the Big Ten. I don't think when you look at Penn State, Ohio State, and Michigan, they're in a class of their own, apparently. And I don't know if they get tested that much within their own conference. I know Rutgers is trying to make a little bit of a ruckus here, but when you look at the other schools, they're just there.
Yeah, I think the rankings, you and I have discussed this before. I think they're mostly for media and for fans because the only way to tell is when you play each other. And now it's going to be determined in the college playoff or, maybe in bowl games. People are talking about how down the SEC is this year. Well, I venture to say that the SEC is just more
balanced.
There's more parity this year.
I agree.
There's far less separation from the teams at the top in the East and the West. So those other teams have sort of closed the gap. You could argue Missouri is one of those teams that has done that very same thing. And it's playing better than it has in past years. So I don't know that, again, you don't really know this until teams are going to play each other, but I don't necessarily buy the argument that because teams aren't blowing out teams in the SEC that they're not as good. Anyone would put Georgia Bulldogs up against most teams and they're probably going to beat everyone. And probably the same thing with Alabama and maybe the way LSU is playing right now. They could probably beat most teams with the electrifying Jaden Daniels at quarterback, who, for my money right now, I think he's probably has the edge in the Heisman voting. I mean, he's just so dynamic, and if their defense gets anything close to what they were in 2019, they're going to be right there also.
Yeah, I agree with you. Obviously, we saw him firsthand. But, that's a team that's not bad. I mean, they feature some really good athletes on both sides of the ball. And going back to your point about the SEC, the balance, I think that the SEC, the other schools have said, hey, listen, if we're going to compete, we're going to go out and find some of these guys that, that Alabama's going after and some other schools, and maybe not that top tier guy.
Yeah.
But they're going after guys who are in that neighborhood, who are in that ballpark. Maybe not a 5-star, but maybe a 4 or maybe a 3.5. And then it's up to them to coach them up to be competitive. And Howard, you know this as well as anybody. It only takes one commitment and a portal to put you back in being healthy again. And I think we're going to see more of that within the SEC. I don't think you're going to have a team in the SEC. Now, you can say, well, what about Vanderbilt? What about Kentucky? Yeah, I got news for you. Vanderbilt will not be on a lot of teams' non-conference schedule at the rate that they're going. I think that they're a program that's obviously, because of their academics, might be in the wrong league, but they make it interesting for you on Saturday.
And let me tell you what else Vanderbilt is doing to sort of even the playing field. They're upgrading the football facilities. They've blown out both end zones. And so by the next time that Missouri plays in Nashville, that whole facility upgrade should be done. It'll look like a completely different stadium. And I can tell you, they challenged Georgia the other day. No one really wants to play Vanderbilt because they always have players that can compete. And I think if Clark Lee is able to hang on to his job, he will probably be able to accomplish something similar to what James Franklin did before Franklin was poached by Penn State. He had like two 9-win seasons, and it's Vanderbilt. I'm not saying that as a negative or slight to Vanderbilt at all, but if you've got the right puzzle pieces, you're going to be able to compete, and that's what Franklin did. And I think Clark Lee is, maybe in that same sort of rarefied air as Franklin was a number of years ago.
All right, we're going to come back. When we do, we'll talk a little pro football. We'll find out about your Cowboys. I'm not sure about them anymore, man. I'm just not sure. But we'll talk about them when we come back after this.
Munganess St. Louis Acura has a great selection of new and certified pre-owned Acuras. Get 3.9% financing for up to 36 months on all new Acura models, or get $1,000 in loyalty incentives on the 2023 TLX and RDX, and $750 in loyalty incentives on the 2024 Integra. Get financing as low as 1.99% for up to 36 months on certified pre-owned TLX and MDX models. Munganess St. Louis Acura, better than ever for you.
So what made you get involved in this program? I mean, you had multiple options, I'm sure, but what made you think that this is something you wanted to do?
Well, I wasn't quite sure what kind of career path I wanted to take at the time, and I heard about the Painters Union and all the great things about it. Basically, they put you through this apprenticeship. It's a 4-year apprenticeship, and they teach you everything you need to know about the trade. So it was pretty hard for me to pass up once I heard that.
Well, I think mostly it was just knowing that, they're here to protect you, the union is, and knowing that I was going to be able to take my time to learn. It wasn't going to be one of those things where they're forced to, day one, jump right into it. And I think once I figured that out, I love the opportunity to grow, and I think that that's the best thing for a job.
All right, let's talk some NFL. Your Cowboys, they put on an interesting game the other night. I just don't know about this league anymore, man. I mean, I think we're at that point where we're starting to see some teams separate from the pack, but I just don't know who's good. I mean, obviously San Francisco was shown that they're really good, but then they go out and stub their toe. And I expect that. I don't think we'll ever see a team go wire to wire again. I just think it's too hard. But with that said, what about your Cowboys, and who is real in the National Football League?
Well, I certainly believe the 49ers, when it's all said and done, they're going to be in the playoffs and competing for the top spot. Who goes along with them remains to be seen. You saw the Eagles lose to the Jets on Sunday. The Cowboys destroyed the Jets. The Cowboys stubbed their toe against the Arizona Cardinals. They destroyed the Patriots, handing Bill Belichick his worst loss ever. So I don't know. They're up and down. They're up and down. I wasn't a fan of Mike McCarthy as the head coach.
Me neither.
I just, and still,
I'm even less of a fan as his play caller.
Well, and that's the thing. I really believe that as a head coach in today's, not just the NFL, but even at the collegiate level, I think if you're the head coach, you should be managing your overall team. You should be the CEO. Hire a coordinator to do the things that the head coach is trying to. I just think there's too many things, too many distractions as a head coach to try to do that. I understand he's had experience doing it, but I think the league has changed in 10 to 15 years since he's done it last. But this Dallas team, man, they kill you. They do some great things, and then all of a sudden, they have such letdowns. Dak didn't throw any interceptions on Sunday, but he wasn't necessarily the sharpest. I mean, he was on the run a lot. He was able to make plays, but it's a long season. We know they've got to find. They've got to find their mojo. We'll see if they make any moves before the trade deadline. I don't know if they did, where those moves might be. Maybe a linebacker, because it looks like they've lost Van Der Esch for a period. Yeah, and he's got a history of neck issues. And if it were me, and that type of injury, I'd be serious. Yeah, I mean, he's made a ton of money, but you got to think your long-term health and future. As much as you love the game, you got to think long term. We're all struggling, those of us that have played. I mean, I've had 9 surgeries as a result of the game. And although I'm in relatively good shape, I mean, I had bad days. And you think, sometimes was it worth it the way that I feel? So that's a decision that a player has to manage. But, that's Dallas. Where will they go? Do they find another defensive back? They lost Trayvon Diggs to an ACL. You've now lost Van Der Esch. I still think even acquiring Cooks, the receiver, earlier in the season, in the offseason, it's like they still need someone else there to.
I agree. They're all the same guy. I mean, there's no size at the receiver spot. They're a head scratcher for me. They really are. And
that Amari Cooper deal, to me, they never should have let him go.
I
they
agree.
should have figured out a way
I
to.
agree.
Because then I think you still got a difference maker with having CeeDee Lamb and also having Michael Gallup. I don't know, just my opinion.
No, I think you're spot on it. Hey, we're out of time for today. We'll pick it up next week. Hopefully we'll be talking about a Missouri win as we get set for Georgia the following week. And, of course, the NFL, they'll be hitting stride. We'll really be able to tell who's going to be where later in the season. So for Howard Richards, I'm Mike Claiborne. Anything you have to say, sir?
That's all, man. It's going to be an interesting season, both at the NFL level and at the collegiate level. I don't think anyone is going to predict a clear-cut team that's going to be head and shoulders above anyone else. So
I agree.
Hold on, strap up. It should be a fun ride.
He's Howard. I'm Mike. We're out.